Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see today's and as well as last day's current affairs, guys. So actually on this Ganesh Chaturthi we gave holiday for our institute, and in the next day there is no newspaper analysis and actual newspaper is not published. So because of this, on our day's current affairs of Ganesh Chaturthi and today's class we are going to see together. So before getting started, I want to make a small announcement. We in our academy, we are going to start new batch for prelims cum mains foundation. And especially we are focusing on both online and offline. And the batch is going to be started from today itself. And if you want, you can take admissions by the end of this week, guys. Don't forget. And if you have any queries regarding this course, you can contact us directly on our WhatsApp number, or else you can call on this number 8074765513, or else if you want to meet me directly, you can come to institute, which is located in Ashok Nagar, Hyderabad. Okay, now let us see the first article. So actually most of our articles of these 2 days, they are focused on only one area, that is about India-US trade relations. Okay, now let us see the first article, guys. See the title, India braces for impact of 50% US tariffs from today. So actually this article is talking about what is the impact of this US 50% of tariffs on India goods. Okay, now let us see the context and as well as the ideas that you have to see. So this article is very important from your India-US relations. So India-US relations, where you will see, guys, in your GS paper 2. In your GS paper 2, you will be seeing about this topic from international relations. Apart from this international relations, so this article is talking about especially what is the impact of 50% of tariffs of US on Indian goods. So this topic that you'll study in your GS paper 3 under economy. So in economy, especially in this chapter of trade and even international organizations, you will be seeing this topic, guys. So what exactly you have to see from this topic? First, you have to see about trade, and in this trade you have to see about import duty and as well as export duty, and you have to see about what are the impacts of imposing this import duty or export duty, and next you have to see how can we avoid this import duty or export duty, like we can go for free trade agreements or bilateral trade agreements. And apart from that, you have to see what is the role of WTO, that is World Trade Organization, in ensuring free and fair trade. Okay, so these are the areas that you have to focus from this article, guys. So if you see the context, it says that United States under President Donald Trump, that is in this 2.0 of Trump, implemented a new set of tariffs on Indian imports, and now they are going to be come into effect from 27th of this August, guys. So because of this, yes, we are going to have lots of impact. So how much amount of tariff they are going to impose? 25% of tariff on Indian goods because of this trade deficit between India and US trade. And apart from that, they are also going to add 25% of extra tariff because of this the oil imports that we are getting from this Russia under this Russian Sanction Act. So overall 25 plus 25. So Indian goods are going to be affected by 50% of tariff. And which are the goods that are going to be affected? Not all goods that we are exporting from India to US will be getting affected, but only certain goods will be getting affected. So those are, the first one is textiles and apparels, nothing but ready-made goods, garments, carpets, etc. And next one is our gems and jewelry will be getting affected, and even leather goods. Especially in India, North India is very important, especially Kanpur is very important for this leather industries, and is going to be hit hard now. And next one is marine products like shrimp, especially AP is going to be affected because of this tariffs. And next one is chemicals and certain auto components. So these are the categories of the goods that now they are going to be affected because of this 50% tariff. And there are also certain exemptions. So certain products like pharmaceuticals, especially active pharmaceutical ingredient and generic medicines, which India is very much famous for. So they are getting exempted. So So because of this, our pharmaceutical sector is not going to be affected because of this tariffs, guys. And next one is semiconductors, electronics. In the semiconductors, electronics, mobiles and Apple in India, energy resources like crude oil, natural gas, critical minerals, iron and steel, aluminium, copper, passenger goods, light trucks, and some auto parts, they are going to be getting exempted under these tariffs. Okay, so just remember these areas where which sectors are going to be affected because of this tariff. Okay, and here how you have to say is, yes, if these sectors are going to be affected in India, obviously it will be having impact on Indian economy. So how we have to make certain benefits, or how government can protect these areas. So think from that point of view, guys. Okay, and now let us see what are the reasons. As you all know that this US came up with this Russian Sanction Act of 2025, and it wants to end this. US wants to end this Russia-Ukraine war, and US wants to hit Russia economically. So because of this, the countries which are giving income for this Russia by buying this oil of Russia, so on those countries, US said that we are going to impose up to 500% of tariff. Under that, they imposed now 25% of tariff on Indian goods. Okay, the second important reason here is India is the world's third largest oil importer, guys. So, because of this, especially here, if you want to maintain energy security in India, we have to get oil from one or other country. So, earlier we used to get from West Asian countries, but now we diverted towards this Russia. So, if you see the things that how you are importing from this Russia, if you see from last 3 years, before starting of this Russia-Ukraine war, India used to get only just 2.0.2 percentage of oil, but now it had been increased to 40 percentage of oil. That means so major economy of Russia, it is mainly dependent on selling of oil. Okay, and especially why India is getting oil from this Russia is because if you compare with the global prices, that is around 10 to 20 percentage of less price that you are getting, that is this Russia is offering discounted price for India. So because of this, we are getting around 40 percentage of our Indian imports from this Russia. And next one here is reciprocal trade barriers. So actually here US made a statement that India is tariff king. So India is imposing huge amount of tariffs on US goods which are entering into India. So because of this, for tit for tat, US is imposing tariffs on Indian goods. That is the second major region. Okay, next one here is, even there is trade deficit. If you see the trade between India and US is importing more compared to that of exports to India. So because of this, they want to balance this trade between India and US. That is also one important reason why here Trump wants to impose more duties on Indian goods. Okay, so that is the thing. And what is the impact? The impact here is, yes, whenever our goods are attracting more taxes or tariffs, then can we export more? No. Obviously, Indian exports will be decreased. And one more thing here is, if you're exporting less, means that goods will be taken up, or that vacuum will be taken up by other countries. So now here Vietnam and Bangladesh will be getting advantages because of this tariffs on Indian goods. And next one here is, even we are going to have an impact on our economy, guys. So around 0.3 percentage of slowdown of economy can happen because of this US imposition of taxes on Indian goods. Okay, so this is the thing that you have to see. And next one here is, we are also going to reduce our production, and because of this there will be also increased inflation, and as well as we can also see like there is increased unemployment, increased poverty, everything will be going to be having effect. So those are the things that you have to remember, guys. And now let us see the next article. See the title: 9 pilgrims among 13 people killed as heavy rain landslides batter Jammu. So what is happening in this Jammu and Kashmir? So Jammu and Kashmir is part of our Himalayan region, right? So here Himalayan region is very famous for instability or instability because of this plate movements. So because of this Indo-Australian plate which is moving around 20 every year, so this region is highly unstable. So because of this, this region is vulnerable to earthquakes, landslides, And even whenever we have this monsoon season, what happens? There will be sudden raising of warm air that will lead to the formation of vertical clouds called as cumulonimbus clouds, and they cause cloud burst. And now here the cloud burst is also happening. Because of this cloud burst, very high intense rainfall, that is around 10 centimeters of rainfall within 1 hour, and that too within 10 square kilometers of area. So because of this, what is happening here? There is landslides, mudslides, and even flash floods which are happening here. So because of this, especially tourists who are visiting these areas to visit this Chardham, that is nothing but Kedarnath, Badrinath, Gangotri, Yamunotri, so they are getting affected. So that is the thing which is happening now. And even we have this Mansarovar Yatra and as well as Kailashnath Yatra. So here many Hindu pilgrims, they are attracted towards this pilgrimage sites, and because of this unstable weather events that are happening in that region, so there is loss of life. So just see about what is this cloudburst phenomena and what are these landslides, and you have to see why this Himalayan region is unstable when we compare to that of Western Ghats, because this was already the question which asked in UPSC. Okay, so that's it, nothing more than that. So already we discussed about this topic number of times, guys. And now let us see the next article. See the title. Quad talks will be on agenda when Modi meets Japan PM this week. So actually this article is talking about Quad meet. The keyword here is Quad. What is Quad? Quad is nothing but Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. So actually it is an organization of 4 countries. So which are those 4 countries? We have India, we have Japan, we have Australia, and we have US. So these are the 4 countries which are the grouping under this Quad. And actually it is informal grouping. It is not at all a formal grouping, it is informal grouping, and they focused on military ties. They want to focus on security under this grouping. So actually now we are going to have meet between India and as well as Japan. So actually if you see here in these 4 countries, so we are having some differences between India and US now. So because of this, whenever we are having this kind of meets, whatever the differences we have, so we can have a platform so that we can discuss about the differences and we can clear our differences. So this article is talking about, especially we are going to talk about increasing of defense ties with Japan, and apart from that, India can also have an opportunity to talk about the differences between India and US. And this topic is important from your GS paper 2, guys, which comes in international relations. And from Quad, you can get a prelims based question. So last year in your UPSC prelims, there were 3 questions regarding the groupings only. So you have to know the basic facts of that grouping. Very, very important. Okay, now let us see this context. So here actually they are going to talk about some change in geopolitics between these 4 countries in this meet, and especially they are focusing on economic thing, that is nothing but trade ties, and they want to focus on the priorities, and especially they want to talk about India US trade frictions and even increasing of Chinese expansion in this Indo-Pacific region. So actually they want to talk about all these things in this Quad summit. So first one, if you see here, this Quad, it is nothing but an informal grouping, which is the military grouping of 4 countries, as I said. It is India, Japan, US, and Australia. And actually why they came and they formed this grouping is to establish peace and as well as safety and security, and to improve prosperity in this Indo-Pacific region. Because all these 4 countries, they share boundary with this Indian and as well as Pacific Ocean. So because of this, their common interest is to ensure free and fair trade and open seas and proper supply chains, proper logistics in this region. And if you say they wants to focus on especially critical minerals. So in this meet, so between India and Japan, they want to focus on collaboration for securing of critical minerals. Especially they want to focus on advanced manufacturing, and they want to focus on this batteries and as well as electronics and green energy. And especially in this meet, they want to decrease dependency on this China. So decreasing dependency on this China will be the agenda of these talks between India and Japan. because Japan is a developed nation, so from where we can get good technology. And even China, and even if you see relationship between India and Japan, so Japan is an all weather friend for India, so that if you want to get anything, so here other than going to this China, we can go to Japan. And this one here is leaders. They are going to deepen defense projects, like they are focusing on joint ship maintenance, and they want to improve technology transfer, and even they want to focus on increasing of maritime security and coordination in this Indo-Pacific region, and they want to focus on increased access to the ports between these two countries as well. So in this way, they want to focus on improving of relationship between India and Japan regarding defense and security. And this one is they want to focus on even increasing of economy and as well as technology by coming up with new strategies of UPI arrangements between India and Japan. And as well as we want to focus on increased investment and as well as technology also from this Japan. And what is the impact of these talks? So if you are improving defense ties and as well as security ties, information and as well as technology, obviously we can improve our supply chains. We can get our goods from Japan rather than getting from China. And this one is we can have an access to these critical minerals. Critical minerals are very, very important for development of whatever the electronic technology it may be. So for that, we can get now from this Japan, and we can also safeguard our industries like electronics, electric vehicles, batteries, etc. Because mostly these are under control of China. China is the largest exporter of all these things. If you're moving towards this Japan, we can control these shocks which will come from this China, suddenly stopping of exports from this China. And next one here is this article is also saying that we can also improve safety and security in this Indo-Pacific region. How? We can come up with the joint military drills, we can go for proper ship maintenance and even access to the ports and even information sharing, so that we can secure our sensitive sea lanes also. Okay, let us see this next article. See the title, guys. Title says government schools account for 55.9% of total enrollments, says survey. So what is this article talking about? This article is talking about enrollments in government schools. So normally if you see the school system in India, we have two types of schools. Not two, I think three types. So first one is government schools, which are run and operated by government, and this one is government aided schools. They are not directly run by the government, but government will be giving funds. And this one is we have private schools. We all know about this private schools, which are run and owned and funded by the private people. So actually what is happening here is, this article is saying that enrollments, that is nothing but the schools admissions, enrollments are nothing but the students who are taking admissions in the schools. So the enrollments in this government schools is just 55.9%. Okay, that is the thing which mainly said here. So now you guys tell me, so why there is decreased enrollments in these government schools? What might be the reasons? So first one is, do we have any infrastructure when we compare to these private schools and government schools? Infrastructure is not to the mark. And what about faculty or teachers? Do they come on time? Even if they are not coming, or if they are on time also, there is many a times they are not willing or they are not much interested to teach to the students. And actually we have very low pupil to faculty or pupil to teacher ratio. That means normally for 20 to 30 students we will be having a single faculty or teacher, and normally in government schools from first class to fifth class there will be no classrooms, and they will be made to sit in one classroom and one teacher will be teaching all the subjects. And next one here is, even there is lack of basic sanitation facilities, like there is no proper drinking water facilities and separate toilets for boys and as well as girls, and even no proper classrooms itself in the schools. So because of all these reasons, now there is decreasing of enrollment in this government schools. That is the thing which mainly said here. So now let us see here from which subject it is important. We have GS paper 2 under governance. In this governance we have education health. So this topic is important from your education. And especially this topic is important from your primary education. Okay, now let us see here this topic. So according to CMS education survey, very important. If you're getting this kind of surveys and data, so you have to make a note. And in today's class, I'm going to tell about two important surveys regarding this education itself. So here this is about CMS education survey 2025. It says that 55.9% of total student enrollments across the nation, they are seen in these government schools. And especially in these rural areas only we have good rate of enrollment in these government schools rather than these private schools. If you go to the urban schools, there is a good rate of enrollment in private schools compared to that of urban government schools. So if you see these details, it is saying that yes, there is a increased enrollment into these government schools in villages or rural areas. So government schools remain the primary choice in rural areas, and around 66% of students enrolled. And if you see in urban areas, only 30% of students are enrolled in government schools from urban areas. And this one here is if you see the share of private schools, so private schools accounted for 31.9% of enrollment nationally. In several urban areas, private schools outnumber the government institutions in enrollment share. That means when we are comparing overall in across the nation, private schools enrollments are more compared to that of government schools enrollment. And actually average household outlay per student in government schools is just 2,863 rupees annually. That means if you are sending our children to government school, that household, that is nothing but their parents will spend just 2,000 rupees or around 3,000 rupees per year on that kid, because there is no need of food also, there is no need of uniform, there is no need of books, whatever that is required, everything will be provided by the government itself. But in this private school, at least they have to spend minimum 25,000 rupees. It is around 9 to 10 times more that of the parents who are spending on them compared to that of government school and as well as private schools. And if you see here the course fee, only 26.7% of government students they reported paying course fees. Only very less. In the government school also, for the tuition fee they won't pay. But if they are providing any extracurricular activities like saving activities or some skill activities, for that they will be charging. That means it is very less. But if you say in this non-government schools, that is in the private schools, 96 percentage of students they have to pay the fee for sure. They'll not provide the education for the fee of cost. Only if it in case like they are providing any scholarship, they only provide this no cost. But it is very minimal. And this one here is if you see the coaching trend, even though the students who are going to the government school or private school after their school hours, parents are showing interest in sending them to the private tuitions. That is also increasing. Nearly one third of Indian national school children they are now taking private coaching. For example, in urban areas, NEET coaching or any other coaching, IIT coaching, they will be taking, right? So in the same way, even the rural areas also, after their school hours in this government schools, they are sending parents are sending them to this private coaching centers because we have certain gaps in our education system. And if you say what are the economic and policy implications, the first one here is why people are sending their children to these government schools, because it is affordable and they have to spend very less. And even parents, if they are not affording this nutritious diet, if they are sending their children to these government schools, at least they will be getting midday meals, right? That is nothing but very hot cooked along with one boiled egg meals every day. So for that they are sending their children because of affordability. And next one here is despite high enrollment, there is evidence that the relative demand for this government school is stagnating or declining in some states. So even though there are increased enrollments, but there is also one more problem is increasing of dropouts. Why? Because there is no proper quality of education which is provided in the government schools. That is the second point they said. And especially if you see about English instruction in government schools, you're not focusing on English instructions. But in private schools, they will completely focus on this English instruction. So because of this, there is increased enrollments in private schools compared to that of government schools. And especially in some states like AP, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, a significant number of students they now prefer this private education compared to that of government education. And this one here is the government has flagged the need to address quality and as well as infrastructure, teacher absenteeism, and they are focusing on improved public perception as well. So in this way here, what is happening? There is a drift from public schools or government schools towards private schools now. And now let us see the next article. See the title, guys. The gender angle to India's economic vulnerabilities. So as you all know that Indian economy is facing lots of problems. So what are the problems we are facing in our economy? Guys, tell me what are the problems we are facing in our economy? First one is there is no increase of economy or there is no increase of GDP. GDP is stagnant in India. Are we attracting more investments? No, we are not attracting more investments in our India. And next one here is there is high unemployment rate in our country. And we directly jumped from primary to tertiary. We neglected this secondary sector in our country. And next, another problem, we have inflation. What is inflation? There is increased prices, inflation. Apart from this, and even most of our manufacturing sector, it is very, very dull, especially course sectors are facing problems. And next one here is, yes, if you see from education point of view, in higher education, so every year many people are completing their graduation, but they are not getting proper jobs. That means there is skill gap in our people. And next one is there is increased poverty and as well as hunger. And if you say from geography point of view, because of untimely rainfall, because of heavy rainfalls, or in some areas droughts, in some areas floods, what is happening? It is having an impact on agricultural productivity. There is decreasing of agricultural productivity that will lead to food insecurity in our country. And next one here is we are importing costly goods. So because of this, always we have deficit, trade deficit. And next one here is if you are importing more, we have to pay in dollars. So we have decreasing of there is a decreasing trend of forex reserves in our country. Okay, so all these are the problems that we have in our economy. And one more important problem that I have to make a note here is there is decreased women participation. So women after completion of their graduation or like higher studies also, they are not showing much interest to enter into this economic activities. So because of this, here there is decreased women labor force participation. Labor force participation of women is decreasing. So this article is saying that yes, we are having lots of economic vulnerabilities, and actually gender angle is also there. That means there is gender discrimination based on this participation in economy also. So because of this article is saying that for all these economic vulnerabilities or economic challenges, so we can overcome it by increasing of women participation in this economic activities. So this article is important not only from your economy, guys, from your GS paper to under society, social issues also, this article is very, very important. So now let us see the context. So the gender angle to India's economic vulnerabilities, this line which provides a comprehensive analysis of how gender disparities will exacerbate our Indian economic challenges. And even nowadays, we are also going to have shocks because of this US impact or US tariff on Indian goods. So this article is saying that India is to be third largest economy globally soon, and India's GDP is around $4.19 trillion. But here, if you see the contribution of female to this GDP, so there is very low female labor force participation. So because of this, it undermines economic resilience and as well as economic sustainability of our country. So here the proposed 50% of tariffs on Indian exports, which are mainly targeting our labor intensive sectors. For examples, our textiles, our garments, our gems and leather industries, and even shrimp cultivation. So all these are like labor intensive sectors. So these sectors are going to be affected now. So if these sectors in this area, whenever this production is decreasing, then what happens? It will causes huge rate of unemployment. So that is the thing which mainly said, and this article is saying that because of this trade vulnerabilities, it is going to have lot of impact on this women discrimination further. So if you see the key issues which are said in this article, the first one here is there is very low female labor force participation rate. Now it is just 35 to 41 percentage. If you see in China, at least 60% of women they'll participate in economic activities. But here, if you compare in India, just 37 to 41 percentage. So this participation is both a socially and economic liability, because all we know that India is very good at demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is nothing but the working age population is very high in India. But on another side here, women are not contributing. That means if we have 100% demographic dividend, only 50%, that is male, or participating economic activities, and we are leaving this women. So because of this, there will be huge impact on our economy. And next one here is why this low female participation is happening, because of patriarchal mindset, that is male dominant society, where this male says that women's work is just for rearing or like bringing up of children. So because of that mindset, yes, whatever the work woman does in the home, like cooking or else taking care of children or taking care of elderly, that is unpaid work. So mostly here women contribution is to unpaid care work in India. And this one here is even there is lack of safety wherever women go, be it at schools, be it at colleges, universities, the working place. So because of lack of safety, women are not coming forward. And next one is there is no proper logistics, that is transport system, sanitation, infrastructure, and even there are certain culture barriers also. Because of all these reasons, there is very less or very low female participation rate. And this one here is economic vulnerabilities. So especially if you see, there are certain sectors, there is gender gap. For example, in some areas like textiles, gem, footwear, so women are employed more. And what is happening now because of these US tariffs, so these sectors are going to be affected. And if there is rise of unemployment, whose unemployment is rising? Again, women's unemployment rises. So if women unemployment rises, that will lead to furthermore increased what happens, furthermore increasing of women dropout in employment, that will leads to the furthermore decreasing of this female labor force participation in India. And this one here is IMF also said that because of this gender gap, it will leads to the Indian GDP by 27 percentage. If we are encouraging 100% women participation in economic activities, our economy or our GDP will be increased by 27 percentage. So because of this disadvantage that India is getting, so we are reducing our GDP by ourselves. And this one here is India's export dependence on US, which is having lots of risk, like reducing of export volumes, that will be having disproportionately effect on women workers. Okay, and if you see from other countries like Japan, China, and Southern Europe, so women plays a very important role in economic participation that leads to the long-term growth. So we can learn from those countries and we can implement women-based gender policies so that we can boost our women participation. And next one here is, yeah, US came up with this equal pay, child care, monetizing of child care during this World War II time. And China came up with this state supported child care and as well as education. And Japan and Netherlands came up with the flexible work and legal protections for this woman. So in the same way, we can learn from how other countries are doing and we can implement in India so that we can increase contribution from our women from in our country, guys. And as one is we can come up with some legal reforms, and even especially if government is trying to provide these creche features and as well as increased children care centers or daycare centers and even skill development in women, so that we can remove the structural barriers and we can empower women. So that's the thing which mainly said. And what is the way forward? The way forward here is we have to focus on multi-dimensional barriers. So which are the barriers which are stopping women to enter into economic activities? We have to focus on all those things, be it at social level, economic level, infrastructure level, and policy level, so that we can increase female participation. Okay, so see that once. And now let us see the next article. See the title, guys. India Saudi hold 7th joint defense panel meet in Delhi. So we are going to have meet between India and Saudi Arabia, and here we are focusing on defense partnership. So what will includes in this defense, as I said in earlier classes, first one is we will focus on training. We will provide training to armed forces of India and as well as Saudi Arabia, and will share the best practices. That means how they are doing best, and if they are doing best, they'll share the things, and if you are doing best, we'll share the things to them. So that the first one is they'll provide training, and next one is they will provide cooperation, cyber security, and information technology, and they'll focus on disaster management and tactical communications. And apart from that, they'll also showcase their indigenous developments in manufacturing sectors, and also they'll focus on joint production of equipment and as well as equipment partnership between India and Saudi Arabia. So if you are having defense related cooperation between any other country, first one they will be having training, and next one is sharing of best practices, and they will also share information about their equipments. If they are producing any new technology, they will be sharing information about that. And next one is joint military operations. So these will be the part of this cooperation between any other country related to this defense. Okay, so see where is the Saudi Arabia located, and you have to see about economy of Saudi Arabia, and next you have to see about the countries with which it is sharing boundary, and if there are any nearby water bodies, so see which are those water bodies it is sharing boundary with. So it is very, very important, guys. And now let us see the next article. See the title. School enrollment in 3 to 11 age group down by 25 lakhs. So this report is nothing but UDISC report. Please make a note. UDISC report is released by Ministry of Education, and it is very, very authentic report, guys. So if you are writing any answer regarding education, it may be primary or secondary or higher, whatever it may be, you have to include two reports. One is UDISC, it is released by Ministry of Education, and second one is Aisha report. And even there is one more report, that is ASER report by Pratham, that is NGO. NGO will release one report called as ASER. Okay, so first one is UDISC report, second one is Aisha report, and third one is Pratham NGO report. And the name of that report is ASER. ASER, Aisha, and UDISC. So these are the three important reports that you have to quote in your answer while you are writing about anything related to education, guys. Okay, and now let us see this article. So this article is saying that 3 to 11 years age group. So now you guys tell me, 3 to 11 years age group enrollments are decreasing. So now you guys tell me, based on your knowledge, why this decreasing of enrollments for these 3 to 11 years is happening now. Okay, so one reason is poverty. Accepted. Next. So what is TFR in India? So here normally TFR is 2.1, but it had been decreased to 1.5 in Southern India, and in Northern India we have more, right? That means the number of children from this age group is decreasing or not because of decreasing of TFR. That is the reason. And another reasons, any other reasons why the decreasing of enrollment of the students? Migration to? Okay, because of international migration, there is decreasing of. Okay, next. Migration, TFR, poverty. Okay, let us see this article, and this article is again important from your GS paper 2 under governance, from your education topic. Okay, now let us see this article clearly. So India's UDISC plus 2024 to 2025 report says that especially 3 to 11 years enrollment had been reduced to around 25 lakh. So it is a second year. If you compare to the last year and this year, there is continuous declining of this early grade student numbers. So here this article it is saying that last year around 11 lakh decreased, and now if you see with this last year and this year, there is around 25 lakh numbers of this enrollment decreased in India. So actually, why did enrollment decline? The first one is demographic changes is happening. So actually, because of this declining of fertility rate, so parents or couple they are not much interested to give more number of birth to more number of child. So because of this reason, especially the age group between this 3 to 11 years is decreasing. Especially that means school age population is shrinking day by day. And next one here is we are also having improved data collection methods now. So because of this, there is no ghost or there is no duplicate enrollments. So because of this, nowadays we have accurate information compared to that of earlier information. So because of this also there is declining of numbers. Now you are getting exact numbers. Earlier what happened, even though after the birth of child, if they died before this 5 years, it is under 5 mortality, so there is no removal of that ghost data. Ghost data is nothing but the children who died, but even though there is no removal of their data, that is called as ghost data. So here now we have good data collection tools, good updation, and even RGI, Registrar General of India, said that births and as well as deaths registration is compulsory. Because of that, now we are having accurate data. And next one is nowadays what is happening, schools merger is happening, and even closure of government schools are happening, especially in the rural areas because of low enrollment ratio. So finally that also led to this decreasing of number of enrollments in this government schools. And this one here is because of economic and social factors also, like economic distress because of this COVID-19 pandemic, distress, migration, and even if you go to private schools, the cost is very very high. And if you see in this Hyderabad area, if you want to get admission for the nursery or the first class, it will be more than 1 lakh rupees for sure. So because of this, what is happening now, especially it is very very vulnerable for the parents to send their children to these private schools economically. So because of this, dropout is increasing. And next one here is even there are delays in scholarship disbursement. So if we are joining our children in the school, in a case that we have any we can get any scholarship like that. So from the government also they are not providing their scholarship. So there is underfunded schools, etc. There is no infrastructure gaps also. So because of this also there is decreased retention in the schools. There is increased dropouts in the schools. So because of all these reasons, there is low enrollments between this 3 to 11 years of age students. And what is the impacts, what happens? So if there is increased dropouts and if there is no proper enrollment in the schools, can we achieve our sustainable development goals? No. So even we are going to have our impact on this SDG targets, and even national education policy 2020 also we cannot implement to the full scale. And next one is resource allocation issues. So because of this decreased enrollment, it will raises some questions like why we have to spend that much budget in this government schools, right? So again, it will be having impact on our Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan and as well as midday meals program. And next one here is because of this low enrollment ratios, obviously it will lead to increasing of socio-economic disparities between the people. Between urban areas and as well as rural areas also it will increase. And what happens? Do our children in the future, do they have any skills? No, the skills will be very low. And again that will lead to the visual cycle of poverty, hunger, everything. And next one here is obviously if parents are not sending their children to school, then what they'll do? Obviously, they'll take them along with them in their work, so that there will be also a rise of child labor in India. And because of this, it will violate fundamental rights of the children, especially Article 21A that talks about right to education, and even Right to Education Act of 2009 will be also be getting affected. And this one here is obviously what happens, there will be the threat to the future skill development, productivity and social mobility of the people. So all these will be the impacts. And what is this UDISC? It is system of online data collection from the schools, and it was developed by the Department of School Education Literacy in 2018 to 2019. And this data will be released by Ministry of Education, and they will collect data regarding some parameters like schools, which school it is, private or government, and what about infrastructure, teachers, enrollment, examination results, etc. They'll collect all this data, and they will be releasing this data under this UDISC. Okay, now let us see the next article, guys. See the title. Centering elderly women caring for the quiet majority. So what is this article talking about? So this article is talking about elderly people, right? So normally if you see the age in this perspective of growth and development, so we have different stages. Especially after birth till 1 month of time, we have neonates. Those kids are called as neonates. Okay, from that to around 14 years or like 11 years, we'll call them as childhood. And we have teenage called as adolescent. And after that, we have youth or adolescent. Next one is adult. Next one is elderly. So in our life, we have different stages like neonates to children or childhood, adolescent or youth. Next one is adult age and elderly age or old age. So what happens here is whenever our age is progressing, our body cells function will be reduced gradually. So because of this, what happens whenever the function of cells are decreasing gradually, so we will be getting more diseases now. So whenever age increases, we will get more diseases, especially we will get non-communicable diseases. So those non-communicable diseases like diabetes mellitus, hypertension, kidney disease, liver disease, whatever it may be, and the affecting of disease will be depend on our lifestyle. So if you are having healthy lifestyle, we'll get those diseases very late. If you are not having healthy lifestyle, then we'll be getting that disease at even adolescent age also. It is based on entirely the food that we take and the activities we do, whether we are active or not, whether we have sedentary lifestyle or whether we have active lifestyle. So because of this, it is happening. So in this, especially elderly people, if you take the gender wise, we have men and as well as we have women. So if you take example in your home, if you are having a grandfather and grandmother, so on whom will spend more amount of money, grandfather or grandmother? Normally, if they have to do any surgery or if they are having any problem, normally will spend more money on men compared to that of women, right? So even at this elderly age also, to access this health care, so we are having gender based discrimination. So women are not getting proper access to the healthcare even in this elderly age. So that is the thing which mainly said by this article, not by me, guys. So see here. So this article is saying that as per 2011 United Nations Food and Population Association, that is UNFPA study, says that 20%, only 20% of women, they could pay their own medical bills. That means what about this 80% of women who are belonging to the elderly, they had been left behind. Only 20% of women, they can pay their own medical bills. And according to Help Age India, so 1 in 10 elderly women, they have depressive symptoms, seek help. So even if they are having lots of health problems, they can't ask anyone to help me. I have this problem. Please let me go to hospital. Please let me have the proper checkups. So there is a lack of proper availability of help also for this women who are in India. For every 1 out of 10 women are facing this problem. And even they have stigma, they have poor access to this mental health services. And not only that, in India, healthcare expenditure is far less on women than men. When we compare to that of men on women, there is a very, very less expenditure on health across all ages, not only the elderly, be it at young age till elderly age. So here in all ages, there is very less expenditure on women. And this one is in every socio-economic group. So because of this, there is further worsening of health conditions later in life. So as I believe that in a family, whenever woman is very strong, that entire family will be strong. But actually, if any sacrifice that has to do, so who will be the first person who will be sacrificing? Mother will be sacrificing everything, be it at food, be it at the expenditure, whatever the savings they do, everything they will be spending for everyone in that family. But the one who is most uncared in the family is that woman. So if you try to focus on that woman and women health, obviously that family will be like very very good, and that entire family will be bright for next 100 years. So actually the thing which is happening in India is the person who is doing more sacrifices, that person is least taken care of in our India. So that's the thing which mainly said in this article. So in every age, whatever it may be, in every like in any socio-economic groups, here women is most neglected. And not only that, even whenever the government is doing policy, women is neglected. So that is the thing which mainly said. So because of this, here lots of the issues that women is facing in the society. And next one is, if you want to achieve this Viksit Bharat and if you want to achieve this developed status, obviously we have to focus on the women and women health. Okay, so that's the thing which mainly said here, nothing more than that. So these are the some important articles that appeared in our today's and as well as last day's current affairs case. So by this I'm concluding. Thank you so much for watching, and please do like this class and share this class to your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to Rathod Science Academy. And you can also follow us on our Instagram, where we are providing daily one prelims question with along with answer, and even mains question with model answer, and as well as current affairs in shorts, guys. Don't miss that. Thank you so much.